Are you tired of oatmeal muffins that taste great but are dense and heavy? Well, then you've got to try my Oatmeal Breakfast Muffins. These are light, airy, and delicious. You'll be surprised that they were made with oatmeal. So if that interests you, stick around because they're coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I am a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Now today is one of mine. It's one I just came up with a week ago, and I shared pictures on my social media, and people were very interested in my oatmeal breakfast muffins, which is what we're going to do today. I came up with this recipe because I was going through YouTube watching some of the foreign baking channels. This one wasn't the German ones that I've been watching. I'm not sure what country this came from, but they made an oatmeal bread that looked very spongy. Typically, whenever I've made oatmeal muffins, oatmeal breads, anything like that, it's very dense and heavy. And their bread looked very soft and spongy. And I thought I might be able to adapt the technique that they used and make some breakfast muffins. So that's what I've done. So let us go over the ingredients. I have here 2.5 cups of old-fashioned oats. You don't want quick oats for this, you want old-fashioned oats. I have 2 cups of almond milk. I have 3 eggs. I have 1/2 cup of sugar replacement, 1/2 cup of protein powder. I'm using vanilla. You could use any flavor that you want depending on what taste you're going for. Then I have a tablespoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I have a lemon here because I'm going to zest it. I did not do this in the original recipe, but Paul thought it might add a little brightness, a little something extra to the muffin. So I'm going to try that, and I will let you know at the end whether I thought that was successful or not. I was also thinking you could use orange zest. Lime zest you could use. It might be difficult to pair certain things with it, but maybe if you were doing something with coconut, lime and coconut go well together. But I'm using a lemon today. I have 1 apple here that I have diced small little bits because you're going to be dotting these on top of the muffins. So I wanted these to be about the same size as the blueberries that I'm also going to be using. You can use whatever fruit you want. You could change the apple up for banana, pear, peaches. You could change the berries up and do strawberries. Banana and strawberry would probably be a great combination. And you could just get rid of the blueberries and double up on the other fruits. You can play around with this. It does not have to be as I'm doing it. The fruits that you top your muffin with can be anything you want. Speaking of toppings, I did not in the original have any sort of little topping on it aside from the fruit, but Paul also suggested that a little kind of streusel-y topping might be good. So I decided with oatmeal, brown sugar and cinnamon go great together. So what I did in the recipe was list brown sugar replacement and cinnamon. What I'm using today is sugar in the raw turbinado sugar, because it's like thick little, it's like little crystals of sugar rather than like really fine sugar. So I think that'll give it a little more crunch. And I'm only using 2 tablespoons. Because that will not alter the bites on these muffins. If I went too much further than that, it would start adding bites. So you can use regular sugar or you can use sugar replacement. Then I have 1 teaspoon of cinnamon here. And I have baking spray. I recommend baking spray. I had a little difficulty with one of these sticking, so I want to make sure I spray it really well. And the flour aspect of the baking spray really helps things to release when you're baking. So I would suggest it. If you only have cooking spray, it would be fine. Just make sure that you spray it quite liberally to make sure that they pop out. You could use liners, as many of you may know if you saw my peppermint cupcakes. I had a lot of difficulty with the liners sticking to the cupcakes. So I'm kind of shying away from the liners and I'm just going for the baking spray. But I've heard foil liners might be much easier to work with. I am just going with no liners and just a lot of spray. So let me go spray my muffin tin. I have the 12 cup muffin tin, and cup just means each of these little segments. It doesn't mean each one holds a cup. Just in case that confuses anybody, because there are some people who are not accustomed to baking and might not realize the distinction of just the cup shape rather than a cup measure. So I'm going to spray the pan in a second, but the first thing that you need to do, and this is the trick that I found on those videos that seem to make all the difference in the world. We are going to take our almond milk and pour it into our oatmeal here and stir that around to let it soak, let everything get hydrated. And we are going to let this sit here for about 10 minutes and let that oatmeal suck up some of that almond milk. And this, I was shocked by the difference in the texture of these muffins based on others I've done with just oatmeal. You're going to be surprised. So I'm going to let this soak for 10 minutes and I'm going to stir it around a little bit every now and again, and I'll also press down on the oatmeal because I think that that helps it to pick up some of that liquid as it gets a little wetter. So I'm going to let this sit here. I'm going to go spray my muffin pan and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so this has been about 10 minutes, and you can see the oatmeal has absorbed quite a bit of the almond milk. That is exactly what you want, and I've been like stirring it, mashing it in a little bit, just so it becomes almost paste-like. So, also while I was waiting, I forgot to mix my sugar and cinnamon for the topping, so I did that. I'm going to set that aside for now, along with our fruit. And I think I forgot to mention, I counted this as a half cup of blueberries in the recipe, but I actually counted out 36 so that I could put 3 on each muffin. You don't have to get that crazy about it, but I just wanted to be fair. So I'm going to set these aside for now. And now that the oatmeal is ready, we're going to add in our lemon zest. And I've shown this before, but in case you didn't see whatever recipe that was that I used this in, when you're zesting a lemon or any fruit, you can either zest over the bowl like this, or what I prefer to do, especially if you need to measure it out, is hold the microplane or grater, whatever you're using, upside down so that it will hold all of the zest in between these 2 little railings that they have here. Now this one only calls for the zest of 1 lemon, which is about a tablespoon of zest. And also, I've mentioned before, you don't want to go past the yellow of the flesh because the white pith, they call it, underneath is very bitter. So you don't want any of that in your baked goods or whatever you're using zest in. Could be a chicken dish for all I know. I've made chicken dishes with lemon zest before, and orange zest for that matter. I got most of it off of there. I'm not gonna get too crazy, and just tap that in. Now the lemon can set aside. We don't need any of the juice. I will wrap that tightly in plastic to act almost like the skin, and then save it in the fridge for whatever I need juice for. So we have the zest. We're also gonna add in our lightly beaten eggs and mix that together. You want this part mixed together first so that the eggs can incorporate into the liquid while there's still quite a bit of liquid in here. Once we add in the sweetener and the protein powder, it's going to take up some of that liquid. So by adding the eggs, and I don't think I mentioned this either, both the eggs and the almond milk were at room temperature because it's much easier for things to combine if they are at the same temperature and they're not cold. Okay, so that looks good. Very sloppy, wet batter. Gonna add in our sweetener, our protein powder, our baking powder, and our salt. And just combine all of this. Now it's still gonna stay fairly wet. I mean, it's not gonna be as wet, obviously, but it is still gonna be fairly wet. And you might think, as Paul thought when he first saw this, that it's too wet to become a muffin. He was incorrect. It doesn't happen often, but he was incorrect. See this? It's actually pourable. So now I need to get my scoop so I can put that into the muffin cups. Okay, so this is a number 16 scoop. I've mentioned this before. Some scoops on this little sweeper inside have a number. That shows the size of the scoop. And what the number indicates is how many of these scoops would create a quart. So this size scoop, 16, would make a quart. This is about a 1/4 cup scoop. So if you don't have a scoop, you can just use a 1/4 cup measure. That is fine. So now I'm going to bring in my muffin pan. So you want to just kind of like slightly underfill it and fill each of these cups. And then we will go back if there is extra, which there probably will be, and just even it all out. So let me speed through this process and then we will move on. Okay, so these are all pretty well filled. They come almost up to the top of the cup. And I'm just cleaning off any of the dripping so that there's not a chance for that to burn in the oven, just because it's going to be such a thin amount of batter that it could possibly burn. It won't affect the muffins at all, but you don't want that smell going through your house if you can help it. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in our toppings, our fruit, and our cinnamon sugar. So you're just going to eyeball it. I ended up the first time having extra apple left over, so I'm sure that will be the case again. So I'll do a couple of these. And this is where I got the idea that this was kind of breakfasty. You're getting your oats, you're getting some fruit, you're getting some almond milk, you're getting some eggs. And then, as I said, I counted out 3. You don't have to count out 3 for each muffin if you don't want. I'm just crazy like that sometimes. And I'm going to just press that in slightly just to make sure that they are going to be grabbed by the batter as it cooks. So let me finish topping these off with the fruit and we'll be back to do the cinnamon sugar. Then I'm going to take my cinnamon sugar, and I have a little ½ teaspoon here that I'm going to underfill because this should come up to just under a ½ teaspoon each. Just going to cover each of these with some of the cinnamon sugar. And as you see, you don't need a lot, and it spreads out quite a bit. So let me finish topping them with this, and then we will move on. Okay, they are all topped. As you can see, I did have a little bit of apple left. Not much, but. So now these are going to go into a 350-degree oven. Mine is preheated and waiting for these muffins. They're going to go in there and bake for about 20 to 25 minutes until a toothpick inserted comes out clean. And then I will show you what they look like once we get there. Okay, here we have them. Now they're nicely domed at the moment, but as they cool, it's gonna sink a little bit, so don't be surprised. If you take them out of the oven, they look beautifully domed, and then they kind of sink. That's going to happen. Now we have to let them sit for 5 or 10 minutes in the pan, because if you try to take them out now, they're gonna be too hot and they're gonna break apart. They're not gonna have their structure fully intact until they start to cool. So 5 or 10 minutes. Now halfway through baking, I did rotate the pan so that the ones in the back came to the front, etc. That way, if there are hot spots in the oven, you get a little more even baking than if you just left them in one spot the entire time. So about halfway through, it's like the 12-minute mark, I spun them. And these ended up being in there for 24 minutes. And I don't know if you can see, they're already starting to sink a little bit because the heat got everything excited and now it's kind of like settling into its structure. So I'll give that a few minutes and I'll be back to try to get them out. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. I have a trusty butter knife here just in case any of them are reluctant to come out. Now I was thinking some of you might be wondering if it's necessary to keep them sitting here for 5 to 10 minutes so they hold their shape. Why not let them sit there longer? And that is because the steam from the muffins, as it's shrinking a little bit in their cups, is going to become condensation underneath the muffin. So it's going to start to get wet. It's going to start to fall apart a little bit. So that's why it's like a balancing act. You don't want to take them out too soon. You don't want to take them out too late. Hopefully we can take them out. Now what I did the last time, see if this is cool enough, is I turned my cooling rack upside down and then dropped them. They all actually came out. I sprayed it well this time. And then you want to turn them back over. Look at these beauties. They're very, I don't know if you can tell, very soft and spongy. I am going to let them cool here completely, but I may end up cutting into one just so you can see the interior, even though it may not be cool enough. Let me just clean off my hands now that I've gotten some condensation on them, and I'll be right back. Okay, so there you have them, my oatmeal breakfast muffins. Now the recipe will be listing the zest as well as the sugar cinnamon topping as optional. But I did calculate that into the recipe, but I calculated it using the brown sugar swerve, not the turbinado sugar that I'm using now. But as I said, the amount we used is not going to affect the bites. It would only affect the calories and the macros. So always put in your items in the recipe builder as you do them. And yes, for those of you using the Healthi app, there is a recipe builder video coming out soon, so get ready for that. So for those of you who are wondering, how many bites or points is this thing? These muffins, just 2 bites or old blue points. On the personal points, I'm not sure, but if you have oatmeal as a 0-point food, these might be 0. Now, if you are following calories, the calories on each of these is 109, and that's as it's written up on the recipe blog, not as I did it with the sugar. That's using the Swerve brown sugar replacement. If you're following macros, the fat is 3.1 grams, the carbs are 22.9 grams, and the protein is 6.4 grams, and that's because we added that protein powder in there. Now, if you wanted, you could replace the protein powder with flour. I believe I calculated it that way, and it did not affect the bites or points for a single muffin. It was only once you had two, because two of these, as they are now with the protein powder, would be 4 bites. But if you use flour, it would go to 5. So flour is an option if you didn't want to get protein powder and you didn't mind having an extra bite if you had 2. So there you have them, my oatmeal breakfast muffins. I hope that you enjoyed this video and this recipe, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet and you are looking for recipes that can help you on a weight loss journey. And share any of my videos if you think there's someone out there who would be interested in this kind of content. And hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video. As I said, I will be doing a tutorial on the Healthi recipe builder, and that's going to come up on an odd day. The last one, editing foods, came up on a Sunday. The recipe builder probably will as well, depending on when I can get it finished. So just hit the notification bell and you will know when I post anything. And comment down below, have you had the other oatmeal muffins or breads that are very dense? I think you'll be surprised by how light and fluffy these are. In fact, I know they're really not cool enough, but let me grab a knife and I'm going to cut one open so you can see inside. Okay, so as I said, these are still a little too warm to be doing this, but for you people, anything. But look inside there. I think I'm going to come up to the camera more so you can see rather than trying to zoom in, which may distort the image. So let me see. Can you see that texture? And look how spongy they are, light and fluffy. These are not those dense muffins that I've put up with for far too long, and I'm no longer going to do it because now I have an alternative. So the recipe for these surprisingly airy oatmeal breakfast muffins is going to be on my blog, and the link to that is down in the description box. If you're not sure how to access the description box, because I know some people often question how to get there, underneath this video where it says the name of my channel, you'll see some words that I've written out, and then it'll say show more. You hit that and it drops open the description box. The link to my blog will be down there, as well as other links like to my Amazon storefront, my Built Bar rewards, my Fetch rewards, and my social media if you care to follow me over there. Here is my Instagram handle, and there are 2 Facebook groups that I'm part of. One is mine, Recipes with Roy, and the other one is Finding Our Way, W-E-I-G-H. And that one I co-admin with Jennifer Lynn from the Jennifer Lynn channel, as well as Bree Coleman from Balancing Life with Bree. So join us over there. There's lots of great tips, tricks, recipes, people, and support. So I'm going to let these cool for a bit longer, and I think that maybe I will nibble on the one that I cut open. It's going to cool down faster than the other one, so why not? Anyway, until next time, bye.